ladies and gentlemen, Teresa de Grosbois.
We often think of influence as something you either have or don't have. Ellen DeGeneres, my next door neighbor Joe. Oprah, Rob Ford. But influence is your ability to cause change. It's clout, it's sway. It's your ability to have success in business. It's even your ability to get your kids to stop texting during dinner. The first challenge that most of us have when we think about stepping into influence is that we all learned a skill set for networking in business that can work against you connecting with highly influential people. For example, you may have learned that it's a good idea to offer to buy a colleague you just met a coffee. Try phoning up the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and offer to buy them a coffee. Faster than you can say restraining order, you'll learn that there's a different set of skills required to network with the highly influential. One of the things we really learn with respect to influence is that we've got a lot of inner dialogue that we've got to overcome. The second challenge that a lot of us face then is that we've got a lot of beliefs around influence and fame. A lot of self-help books are talking about self-limiting beliefs these days. When you talk about stepping into influence and playing a much bigger game, nothing will challenge your self-doubt, your inner dialogue more than thinking about stepping up. You might be telling yourself, I'm not smart enough, nobody's going to listen to me anyway. Do I have spinach in my teeth? These self-doubts become the lens you live your life through. Could someone like me matter or make a difference in the world? One of the reasons I love speaking all over the world, and we all know this, is because the further you are from home, the smarter people think you are. And I struggle with this one as much as the next person. I actually have a brilliant brother. He designs nuclear reactors. He's so smart, he's actually on loan from Canada to the Austrian government, diplomatic loan. Now, I love my brother, but there's still a voice in my head wondering, do they know he used to stick forks in the toaster? It's because the closer we are to someone, the more our inner dialogue comes up. Could someone like me matter or make a difference in the world? So we have to get really good at looking at what stops us from stepping into influence. You might be telling yourself all sorts of things. The alarming thing is that the only people that tend not to have a lot of limiting self-dialogue, a lot of self-doubt that would stop them from becoming influential tend to be sociopaths. Yikes. One of the reasons I wrote my book was that I wanted good people, everyday heroes and leaders to understand that becoming influential is not only simple, but it's important. As good people that would leave a better world to our children, we need to learn to step into our own influence. Otherwise, we risk leaving behind a world run by the very leaders that we fear. And for those of you who are right now saying, dang, not another skill I gotta learn. My day's so full, I barely have time to brush my teeth. You know, breathing takes 24 hours out of every day, and you don't even think about it. It's so natural and intuitive, you just do it. Influence is like breathing. Once you master the skill, it simply becomes the way you live. And all that's required for you to become highly influential is for you to change your thinking about influence. So for those of you who are holding your breath right now, there's key habits that define highly influential people. So we're going to cover 2 new habits that can become as natural as breathing for you. The first habit, no surprise, is authenticity. To be influential, you got to be authentic. There's a lot of different definitions of authenticity out there. Here's mine. Authenticity is simply your inside voice saying the same thing as your outside voice. In other words, what you're thinking and what you're saying and doing are in alignment. So if you're saying to your friend, delicious homemade sushi, and you're thinking, is this tuna roll gonna kill me? That disconnect is evident in your energy. We all know the technical term for that when our thoughts are not in alignment with our words. We call it schmarmy. So consider that you may have an inner dialogue that's getting in the way of you becoming influential. I can actually remember the moment I first created my most significant self-doubt. I'm actually from northern Canada, northern Ontario. I basically grew up in a Mark Twain novel. We used to spend our summers in a remote backwoods cabin. We'd go in every year by boat, just in time to see the hatching of the little baby mosquitoes. And one year, I'm about 3 years old, and we're just back from the cabin, and all my cousins are visiting, and everyone's super excited because my grandmother's taking us to the movies. And that's a big deal. We never go to the movies. My staunchly Catholic mother is seriously concerned about the morals of Hollywood movie makers. But someone's managed to convince Mom that maybe Walt Disney's not the worst guy. And we're going to see The Love Bug. I know, right? Well, I'm shaking with excitement, and I look across the room just in time to see Mom say, Teresa can't go, she's too little. No, The 3-year-old me is devastated, and I make up, I'm too small to play with big kids. And that inner dialogue sticks. You think that might get in the way in business, especially as my career escalates? So I've had to get really exquisite at calming down my inner child so that I can step into the really big game of being of really high service to the world. You all have inner dialogue. Most of it you made up when you were very young. And it can be getting in the way when you want to step up, when you want to lead, when you want to live your dreams. You might be telling yourself, I'm not smart enough, courageous enough. I'm not a good enough speaker. I'm not strong enough, good looking enough. I'm just not enough. So here's your first takeaway. You didn't think you could get assignments in a TED Talk. Kind of exciting, isn't it? So for the next 7 days, every night, journal what came up for you that day. What was your negative self-talk? Especially when you feel called to step up or lead or put yourself out there. But don't just journal where your negative self-talk hinders you. Write about where it helps you. For example, I'm too small to play with the big kids helps me. It motivates me to become an expert on influence and work with people all over the world to create positive change. So for the next 7 days, journal where your self-limiting beliefs hinder you and help you, and see what you see. So habit number 2 then builds on this. Habit number 2 is based on a key principle. You can't make yourself influential. Influential people need other people to talk about them in a positive way. That's where they gain their influence. If I stood up here and said, look at me, I'm so great, I'm a best-selling author, even Canadian, you guys would be rolling your eyes up a lot like some of you are right now. But if I stood up here and said, oh, guys, Dave Bonk is in the room. You gotta meet Dave. He started the most phenomenal charity. It's called Hearts and Hammers. I'm so inspired by Dave's charity, I wrote his name on my hand so I would remember to say this, right? They help people who've become wheelchair bound. They put together teams to go into their homes, to renovate their homes so that they can go back to their families and live with their families. Is that not awesome? Yeah. Dave, just raise your hand for a minute because I want people to see who you are. Yeah. And you see, in this moment, I get to look gracious, and Dave Bonk just became more influential. The next thing I'm going to say is actually the key, and I don't want you to miss it. So like sit up on the edges of your chairs and do this. I love speaking in Canada because you guys actually do it. It's in the act of giving influence to another person that you become more influential. You want to get respect, you give respect. You want to get influence, you give influence. So that's habit number 2. Influential people use the giving and the receiving of influence to build relationship with each other. That's why your ability to get into relationship with influential people is important. And I know some of you are thinking, but I've tried connecting with influential people, and I've run into the gatekeepers. And really, that's just simply because you're being weird. Or another way of saying that is you simply haven't learned the etiquette yet that influential people play by. There's 2 key mistakes that people tend to make around this habit. The first is what I would affectionately call the premature ask. I know what you're thinking, the premature what? The premature ask is the equivalent of you've just met the new neighbor and they come by and say, "Great car, I can't wait to borrow that." Right? You meet the new neighbor, what do? You probably bring them an apple pie or a lasagna. If you're from Northern Ontario, you might bring them a really nice bottle of bug spray. But you often see the equivalent of this at business networking functions. You know, the speaker or the guest of honor will walk off stage, and there'll be a lineup of people waiting to meet them, and half of them will be waiting to offer to buy them a coffee, and the other half will want to give them their book or their CD or a product sample. And here's the thing, asking an influential person for coffee or offering them a product sample when you've just met them is a lot like going to the neighbor that you've just met and saying, "You're going to so love my kids, you're really going to enjoy babysitting them." Now, you might have the most awesome kids on the planet, but it's too soon for that conversation. You want to get influence, you give influence. You can offer to endorse them in some way, shout them out on your social media. That's the equivalent of the apple pie. You can offer to nominate them for an award, share their TED Talks. I mean, really, is TED not the most phenomenal force for change on this planet? Trust me, politicians pay attention to what goes viral. And did you notice what I just did right there? But authentic, right? The second mistake that people tend to make around this habit is that they don't spend and invest the influence that they have. Influence is like a currency. The minute you spend it, it's like an investment that doubles. So here's your second takeaway. Doubly exciting. Take the 30-day influence challenge if you really want to master this. For the next 30 days, gift out influence 30 times to people you authentically feel deserve it. And at the end of 30 days, watch what's happened to your influence. What if becoming an authentic, influential leader is as simple as learning to invest the influence that you already have every day? When you get it, it is as natural as breathing. Thank you.